morning. This is the Daily Wrestling News for February 3rd, 2021. My name is Ryan Joy, and I'm coming to you live from Minutes to Bell Time Studio in the beautiful Treasure Coast of the Sunshine State. And I am joined today by the living legend and senior Impact correspondent, John DeConi. John, good morning. How are you?
Morning, sir. I am not unwell. How about yourself?
I am well. I'll put it to you that way. John and I have a good agenda for you this morning, and our show is powered by the Eastern Observer, and our whole agenda is brought to you by the Eastern Observer. So we have our ridiculously random non-wrestling audience needs to know you better question of the day. It's our playful way to start the show each day. And then we're going to get into the Yokozuna documentary and maybe share some memories about Yokozuna. And we have Impact from last night that we want to touch upon. We've got a couple of news items, not too much. And then we have trivia. So, John, just to let you know, trivia today is going to be all about Yokozuna.
Okay.
So we'll see how many answers you get in our discussion of Yoko. All right, let me ring the bell if you're ready. All right, today's ridiculously random non-wrestling audience needs to know you better question of the day is brought to you by Pro Wrestling Pick'em, a place where you can join or host a Pick'em league to test your predictive skills in the world of pro wrestling. Create an account and join a league now at prowrestlingpick'em.com so you can play against your friends or play against the universe. And John, you're back on top of the league. So
yes,
congratulations.
Thank you. I enjoy the chase a little bit more than the lead because I'm always sweating it, but take it for now.
Very good. So the question of the day, the non-wrestling question of the day is, what's your favorite soft drink?
Well, I'm almost never seen without bottled water in my hand, but beyond that, I'd say I'm kind of an old man. My next go-to is probably ginger ale.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that is old man-esque, I guess. I'm gonna give you that. I have a DMD, Diet Mountain Dew, sitting here, but I'm usually a Diet Coke guy myself. But if I need that kick in the pants in the morning, or anytime. All right, let's talk some wrestling. We had a Yokozuna documentary that dropped, the Icons series, on Sunday, and you and I just got around to watching it, and it's very good. Like everything that they put out is very good. This one, I think, had a little higher production value than some of the other ones, though.
Yes, it felt more like a film, if you will.
Yeah. It even, I guess, where the first part I noticed was kind of in the opening credits, where they had, I don't know, kind of like Marvel has their thing with the comic books and stuff like that. There was definitely an introduction to the Icons series. With like sketching and stuff like that. So I thought, okay, this is going to be something a little bit different. And it was very good. A lot of guests. I think every, they had Afa and Sika and all the cousins, brothers, nephews, etc., children, everybody connected to Yokozuna, plus, of course, the major talents of the day. But I thought they had all the bases covered with the guests on the show.
Yeah, they did a good job. I mean, other than hearing from The Rock, you saw images of him, but yeah, you heard from everybody else pretty much in the family and around. So, yeah, well done as always. They can tell their own story in retrospect better than just about any entity in entertainment.
The show, the way I looked at the show is it had kind of two parts. It had the sort of the rise of Yokozuna and the fall of Yokozuna.
Meteoric rise, yeah.
Yes. And when I guess I hit pause when they started talking about him running out of gas in the ring and started, you could tell that the documentary was taking a shift in tone, and it was about halfway. So I think it was pretty well split, talking about Yokozuna and, getting into wrestling, going to WWE, immediately getting into the WWE Championship picture, pretty much immediately. And then, everything else after that was, how do we keep this guy alive, basically?
Sadly, yes.
I was interested to find out that Sergeant Slaughter was the person who sort of came up with the sumo wrestler idea. I didn't know
Yeah,
that fast.
yeah, absolutely. Vince was Vince. You know, his that first what was it? The Coquina Maximus character really just wasn't hitting. And Vince went to him and kind of said, like, I got 7 other Samoans. What do I do with this guy? And yeah, Sarge is the one who came up with the sumo character.
Yeah, and it really worked for him. I mean, obviously, we know that in retrospective that it did work for him, but um, I don't think that I would have saw that if I
No,
was, if you look at some of those early photos of him with the long hair, um, and you don't really think, he's a big, big man, but you don't really think sumo type of man.
no, yeah. The presentation was everything. You slicked his hair back, put it up in one of those funky buns. You put Fuji next to him, and oh my god, yeah, the character's right there.
Yeah. And then they were talking about various people were talking about WrestleMania 9. That's the Las Vegas Caesars Palace. That's where Yoko defeated Bret Hart to win the WWF Championship. And the Samoans were all talking about how this was like the biggest WrestleMania for them, which is interesting because it's not. I mean, everybody thinks WrestleMania 11 is not the worst, and 9 is usually on the list, not far behind it. Um, but they all really, really, I mean, because of Yokozuna being crowned WWF champion, even for a short period of time, this was a huge deal for them.
Yeah, there's your original head of the table right there. That's
Yeah, no kidding.
taking his spot.
Absolutely. Um, but then the family talked about, sort of the legacy that I think what they remember about him. And you have, I guess, Jimmy or Jay, I don't remember which one it was talking about how, they would go get him coffee and get paid $100 to do it. So it's like their legacy is his legacy is this, I guess, his generosity with his money and stuff. And,
Well, there was once again the way Roman refers to the head of the table as putting food on everybody else's table. You know, he one of the maybe his sister said, he sent out Christmas card. Everyone got a Christmas card with cash in it, and Rikishi talked about the fact that he had just bought himself a new house, but he couldn't afford to put a new heating unit in it, and Rikishi wrote him a blank check, or Yokozuna wrote him a blank check. So yeah, he truly was very generous, and as gruff as he was on camera, backstage he was light and jovial, and for his family, a true family.
and if I could, I just kind of surprise you with this question, but if you could put the Icon documentary out of your mind, and I say Yokozuna, what comes to mind? Like what is the first thing you think of, or I guess your most vivid memory of him?
Probably the main event there at WrestleMania 9.
Okay.
I always remember him beating Bret Hart, and then the ridiculousness that took place immediately thereafter.
Yeah, yeah, of course. And Hogan talked about it. He kind of acknowledged the fact that it wasn't a good idea. Hulk Hogan would come in and immediately beat Yokozuna in about 30 seconds, and he walks out of WrestleMania 9 with the championship. And I guess the way Hogan presented it on the documentary is he went to Vince and said, I'm leaving because I got a movie or a TV show or something. But what if at the end of Mania I come out to help Brett or whatever, and a future pay-per-view we set up Hogan versus Yokozuna, and I guess creative got out of control, and it happened right then and there, and then it was King of the Ring where Yoko would actually win the title back from Hogan with that camera flash thing in Hogan's face. So they still had to protect Hogan from getting beat by Yokozuna. So
Always got to make the big man look good.
Yeah. Yeah. And then Yoko carried the belt until WrestleMania 10, where he did lose it back to Bret Hart. And, that was a really big moment for Bret Hart. I remember, the locker room emptying and putting it up on his shoulders and stuff like that. And very cool moment for Bret. One of the other things that I saw that that you didn't get to see in the documentary is that Yokozuna eventually turned face, and that wasn't in the documentary at all. But if you go back and look, you'll find images of Mr. Fuji waving an American flag as Yokozuna speaks to us in English. So a bit of a character shift toward the end. It was when Cornette brought in Vader that all that happened. So
The other thing I guess I didn't remember as vividly. I remember him, obviously it's very easy to make a heel out of someone anti-American. I remember that he was a heel. I didn't remember just how nasty of a heel he was, I mean, that the quick clip we saw of him doing the drop on, I think it was Jim Duggan, and he's bleeding out of his mouth. And, the announcers are, is there no respect? Like, they are just, like, he was the most evil thing on the planet. He was.
yeah.
I just remember him as a big man. Yes, he was a bad guy, but Fuji was really the villain in that duo.
Well, Yoko did some nasty things, like he would do that bonsai drop, which was just to look at this guy the size of him, and you're like, he would just sit there after the pin for a long period of time, or he'd climb up and do it again. And when I think back, I think those are the things that make me think he was nasty heel, because he would just torture people, and that move above most everything else you'd see in wrestling was like, that was extremely believable.
Yeah.
So,
As DDP is saying, you can't fake gravity.
Yeah, right. Second half of the documentary, they talked a lot about Yoko's weight problems. And I think it was Bruce Pritchard who was talking about how, okay, you see him gaining a little weight and you see him slowing down, and you're worried, okay, we got to lose weight. And then all of a sudden you're like, this man's going to die. And those were the words out of Bruce Pritchard's mouth. So they tried to get him help a couple different times. Yoko wasn't really receptive. That was the kind of the theming in the show. And they wanted to send him to Duke University. He said, no, I'll do my dieting and stuff from home. That didn't work at all. So eventually they did send him to Duke University, but he found a friend to bring him fried chicken or whatever. So it still didn't work when he went to Duke University and was in care, I guess. And ultimately, he was doing a tour in the UK, and he went to bed and didn't wake up. So
very.
There were stories from Savio Vega was telling stories about waking him up. A lot of respect though from guys like the Undertaker. Savio Vega was in there. A lot of time with Rikishi and the Wild Samoans. The thing that was kind of heartbreaking towards the end of the documentary is that all these guys were sitting around questioning if they could have done more. And in the case of some people, were saying it was my fault for not doing more, which is kind of a sad place to be in. Even Bret Hart was like, maybe we should have called him more and encouraged him more and things like that. So kind of a heartbreaking end to the story. He was in his 30s. I want to say 36 or something when he passed. 34. Yeah, so young man who accomplished a lot in those 34 years, but definitely way too young to leave us. And John, the thing we were talking about before the show is that in kind of like all this time that we've been around wrestling and watching wrestling, these stories like this one, it's only recent that it seems like we're able to talk about them, because there was so much scandal stuff going back in the late 80s and especially in the early 90s around this time, that we have a tragedy like this. It didn't seem like anybody was really talking about it. So all these years later, now it seems like we're able to go back and look at these things.
Yeah, it's nice to, nobody enjoys talking about tragedy, but when you have a beloved figure and tragedy, they either suffer a tragedy or some kind of scandal is attached to them, you hate to see their whole career get swept under the carpet, because we just don't want to talk about the bad stuff. So it's nice that they can open up and let a lot of people really say some lovely things about what was apparently a wonderful man.
Yeah. And I should note, there was no real scandal here. It was
no.
he liked to eat, and that was what killed him, basically, in the end, I guess. So, um, anything else on the docs stand out to you? Any moments or stories, and specifically that were of interest, I guess, that we didn't talk about?
Just the idea of just how impressive his rise was.
Yeah,
To come in September of '92 as Coquina. The character really wasn't hitting. He was now he was repackaged less than 2 months later as
yep,
Yokozuna. Normally guys, yeah, you hear all kinds of talk about guys struggling for months and years to grab that character, and he was repackaged by late '92, and he's a champion in '93.
yeah,
That's huge, like mid '93.
yeah.
Oh,
I think it was Rikishi who was talking about how confident they were in their training to do whatever was brought to them. That they
right.
all felt like our training was so good and we're so sound and we know what we're doing that if you bring us a character, we can do it. And I think that's pretty evident because I don't believe Yokozuna was thinking, and Rodney was thinking as he was coming up that he would be a sumo wrestler. But there you have it. Um, but it's one of those things like it's definitely Fuji is what has had a whole career before that, and managed a lot of champions, Demolition and others. But I think Yokozuna is the world title champion. I don't think he had any others before that or after.
Yeah, and
Um,
that's when I think of him, that's it's not all I think of, but my first thought is seeing him next to his world champion.
yeah, yes, yeah, and even Jim Cornette, of course, storied career, and he's either your internet darling today, or he is the bane of your existence today. But I don't believe, in at least in the World Wrestling Federation, that he ever managed another world champion either. Contenders, Vader and the likes, but I don't believe he ever had another world champion. Somebody will correct me, I'm sure, if I'm wrong. All right, yeah. So excellent documentary. We have more to come. I know our friend and pal Gary Mahaffey from the UK is looking forward to when they do the British Bulldog documentary. I'm sure it'll be very good. And there's a whole series of these icons coming out, so it'll be good. Some of the characters haven't really been focused on, so I think they're important stories, and they're interesting stories for us, the wrestling fan that grew up on these characters.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Davy Boy as well. That should be a lot of fun.
Yeah. So impact from last night. Some interesting things happened. I think if I were to look at everything that happened last night, we had two big returns. ODB, which I think we reported on this show, the ODB was returning to Impact, but also Shara returns. I think John, last week when we talked, you were speculating that you thought it might be Shara that comes in to help Rohit.
Yeah, it made sense that it'd be someone from his past, someone from the Desi Hit Squad, and I was just trying to figure because what little clue we had, it seemed like a large, imposing figure, and he certainly fit the bill.
Absolutely, absolutely. Gary listening in. Yeah, so it'll be interesting. We'll see what they do with Shara from here. ODB's return, that's always interesting. And she's aligning herself with Jordan and Jazz. Jordan ended up getting a win over Susan on the show in 4 minutes. I guess just to break down all the matches, Havoc got a win over Natasha Steeles, which sets up another match next week, Nevaeh versus Kiera Hogan.
Where
Josh
have we
Alexander,
seen this before?
what's that?
Where have we seen this before?
Yeah.
They're running before they announced the tag title tournament. This is basically exactly what we did.
You're right. And of course, this was the finals of the tag team tournament, and it looks like it'll probably be their first defense as well. So, Larry D got a win over Crazy Steve with a punch.
Best hand in the house, baby.
There you go. Let's see. And then Rohit Rashu, of course, beat TJP with the help of Shara. And Moose and Chris Bay, they finished the night with victory over Rich Swann and Tommy Dreamer. Trey didn't have a match, John, but he had some weird interaction with Sami Callihan. You want to break that down?
Yeah, he was being interviewed backstage by one of the young ladies, and it started off awkward because she said, welcome back, and what led to you coming back, and he started to describe his career as, I've been walking around with two crutches for the past couple of years. Now I'm ready to stand on my own. And then Sammy kind of walks into the picture, and absolutely deplorable Sammy is the one who kind of taps him on the shoulder and goes like, "Come on, man, where's your sense of dignity? Where's your heart for you're throwing your boys under the bus? They've been gone for 5 minutes here." I'm not quite sure where that's going. Does Sammy eventually take him under his wing, or do they wind up butting heads and having a program? But it was a very weird interaction.
Yeah. Trey definitely is undergoing a personality shift of some kind.
Yeah, I mean, dyed his hair. I mean, right there. Come on.
The hair. It's so interesting what wrestling fans latch onto, and when you do a simple thing like that. By the way, great mug, R2D2 coffee mug. When Cody Rhodes had that black hair for literally a minute, people were like, "Oh my God, he's turning heel." It's like, well,
little character change.
I think he probably messed up the blonde dye job, and that's the only way he could really fix it. So
either that or the lighting just didn't work on the Go Big show.
Perhaps. So yes, Trey definitely going under a personality change, and Cousin Jake offered a position in Violent by Design, which is I guess the reason why he wasn't totally beat down last week. From your perspective, did it look like Cousin Jake was actually contemplating this, or is this like, next week he's supposed to give us an answer? But
right, yeah, he seemed kind of befuddled. Like he was kind of like, how do I feel about this? I really don't know how I feel about this. I'll have an answer next week.
I think he should do it because I think he's going to be really lost out there without it. But I'm sure Impact has ideas. So
yeah.
And who does Violent by Design beat up if they take him in? So, and then we continue with the Eddie Edwards, Brian Myers, Matt Cardona. Now we have Hernandez in the picture here. So there's a match coming for No Surrender, but we don't have quite the details whether it's going to be a singles match or a tag match. But it would be kind of, even though they've been teasing it, it still would be kind of weird to have Cardona and Myers on the opposite side of the ring, don't you think?
It's gonna feel weird, but the minute they passed each other in the hall, either last week or the week before, and kind of, Myers completely blew him off. You immediately had to think, all right, here, eventually these two are going to get it on in, some way. Probably will start out as a tag match, and it'll probably whittle down to those two against each other, and probably a series of matches, if I had to guess.
And I think, when it comes to that singles match, that should be a big program that they pay off on a pay-per-view, like Slammiversary or something. Like, I'm sure it'll take them a long time to get all the storyline set and in place and stuff, but I think that's a match that would attract a lot of attention. So,
yeah, in the history of wrestling, you got a lot of friends who come in together, and then I think it's almost like the honor of their careers to get to then turn on and work against their best friends. So these two are good buddies, and it should make for a really good chemistry and a couple of really good matches.
Absolutely. So next week on the show, ODB versus Kimberly, Kiera Hogan versus Nevaeh, Good Brothers versus Chris Sabin and James Storm for the tag titles.
Yeah, they just kind of dropped that one in there. They talked to each other backstage. Kind of had some unpolite words for one another, and they said, we'll settle it next week. And that was kind of the end of it. And then, as they tend to do on Impact, when they run down the whole card for the next week, they mentioned that was for the tag titles. I had to back it up a second. Wait, did I hear that right?
What was
So
the point of that? What was the point of them facing Private Party for an opportunity if both teams were going to get the opportunity?
exactly. But as we've come to say on the EWP and in our text chains and whatnot, impact gonna impact.
Yeah, exactly. You have to kind of, I mean, whenever you watch wrestling, you have to suspend disbelief a bit. Um, it's very true on Impact.
A little more so.
Yeah. We did get announcement Rohit Raju versus TJP for the X Division Championship at No Surrender, so that match is added. But you have the overwhelming presence of Shera on the outside, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So I think that'll do it for Impact. Anything else anything major on the list there that we didn't cover?
Just Swan and Tommy Dreamer with their contract signing that, no contract signing ever goes smoothly, but even though those two kind of had a uneasy kind of backstage, Swan was like, let me take it. And, Tommy was like, don't worry, I'm going to pull my weight. Tommy seemed a little bit annoyed, but I don't know that it breaks down to them punching each other next week, but something stupid's going to happen because it's a contract signing and something stupid always happens.
Right. Tomorrow, tonight we have a wrestling wedding, and next week we have a contract signing, and we know that they always end up almost the same. A wedding is just a contract signing with a cake.
With a cake.
And perhaps nicer clothes, but I have a couple of news items, and just for kicks, I'm going to play the bumper because we haven't done it in a little while. And I'm going to go ahead and say today's news is brought to you by the free Body Slam Brigade newsletter. Each week I compile the week's top wrestling stories and I put them all in a quick-to-read email that's divided up by company. Nearly 4,000 people get this free newsletter each week. That list is growing every day. In addition to the top stories, the newsletter will also keep you up to date on everything we're doing at Minutes to Bell Time, whether that be new books, podcasts, games, or anything else. It's really the best way to make sure you don't miss anything going on. The issue comes out every Friday at 11 o'clock or at noon or a little bit later if I have a busy day. But did I mention it's free? Sign up now at bodyslambrigade.com. All right, all that to say, I only have a couple of news stories, but I wanted to get that bumper in. WWE Untold APA comes out this Sunday, and I mentioned that yesterday, but I thought I'd bring it up with you, John, because we're like the documentary guys on the show. So, I think that'll be fun to watch. And what hasn't been told about the APA at this point? I think they've been pretty out there. So.
Yeah, if there is enough stuff to fill an hour, then I'll bet it'd be awfully entertaining.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would think that for that one, they should publish the WWE Untold APA drinking game rules or something. But we'll see. Every dam gets a sip. Sasha Banks is going to be on the Broken Skull sessions. Also said that yesterday too. But we came off that Bailey one, which was pretty good, and now we have Sasha Banks. So next after this, we'll probably get them together. So
there you
go. Sticking with some other WWE news, Lars Sullivan was released from his contract. John, you and I talked about this a whole bunch in pre-production. There's really not much to say. I think that the demons that haunted him the first time round with the comments that he made online, at least to me, it appears like they just wouldn't go away. And so when they brought him back, it was kind of a rejection from the community, and now he's gone. I think. I mean, I have no confirmation or anything like that, but to me, that seems to be like what's going on here.
Yeah, when the WWE gives up on a big man, especially a big man that they were trying to put over as an intellectual giant, there must have been a lot of strongly worded letters flowing into Connecticut.
And we have a special request coming in from the UK from Gary. He can't wait for the Ginny Untold documentary to come out now. It's well documented that Gary is not much of a Ginny fan. But
are you going to have him on in the morning to talk about that one?
Definitely have to. I would have to. That's in the works. We might get Gary on here in a couple of weeks, so he's got a little bit of time away. So We
Will
may
be
we may we
thoroughly
may sneak it
entertaining.
on to the morning show here.
Nice.
And then finally, Drew McIntyre putting out a memoir called A Chosen Dynasty. It'll be released May 4th. So interesting to me that they're actually calling this a memoir, and they seem to be crediting Drew McIntyre with writing it. So I don't know if it is one of those biographies with a ghostwriter or not, but it seems to be marketed a little different. They're not calling it a biography or an autobiography. They're calling it a memoir, and they've said multiple times. They said multiple times in the release it was written by Drew. So we'll see what happens with that.
I wonder if this will be like the recent Jericho book where it was all basically from his notes match by match. So, does this come from an old notebook somewhere? Interesting.
Also referring to that Ginny conversation I'll be having with Gary, Travis is thinking it might be a short conversation. Poor Ginny. Poor Ginny. Okay. John, ready for trivia?
Ready as I'll ever be.
All right. All right, John, you get 5 questions. A simple majority correct will get you the win. And if you win, you get the Goldberg Oscar Award. If you lose, you get a Hawkins. As mentioned at the top of the show, this is Yokozuna Trivia. And my first question, who was the first wrestler to knock Yokozuna off his feet? This isn't storyline. So who was the first wrestler to knock Yokozuna off his feet? Was it A, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, B, Bret Hart, C, Owen Hart, or D, Hulk Hogan?
I'll say Brett.
Ooh, this was okay. So this one, the Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and it is that image that you saw in the documentary that you talked about earlier. It was on an episode of Superstars is when this whole thing played out. But after Hacksaw knocked him off his feet with the like the football tackle, Yoko retaliated by dropping 4 bonsai drops on Hacksaw, and that's where you had the blood coming out of his mouth and stuff. So. If people have been watching the show recently, Travis has talked about the Glens Falls Civic Center. Well, Glens Falls, New York is where Hacksaw Jim Duggan is from, so it's probably why it resonates with me, because he was sort of like a hometown guy for us, and it was probably, I don't know if this is true, but it feels like the biggest singles program that I remember him being in, and it was short-lived. So at WrestleMania 9, Yokozuna won the WWF Championship from Bret before dropping it to Hulk Hogan. There was a 3-man announce team calling the action. Let's see if you can remember that team. Was it A, Bobby Heenan, Jim Ross, and Randy Savage? Was it B, Bobby Heenan, Vince McMahon, and Randy Savage? Was it C, Monsoon, Heenan, and Macho? Or was it D, Perfect, Ross, and Heenan?
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. It's here, D. I'm going to go with D.
It was not D. It was A, Bobby Heenan, Jim Ross, and Randy Savage.
I knew it was Heenan and Ross. That was Ross's debut, right?
It was his debut in the company at WrestleMania 9. Jose says hi, so we say hi back.
What's up, Jose?
Hope you enjoy the content. Okay, John, not a good start. You're 0 for 2. But I should mention you were last month's champion. So when we look at the scoreboard, you have 1 monthly championship. Travis is in the lead right now with 3 questions, and if you run the table the rest of the way, you can tie him. But I'm sure he would love to go into tomorrow as in the lead. Longest lead he's ever had.
There's a really good chance of that.
Well, let's check. WrestleMania 10, Yokozuna defended the WWF Championship in 2 matches, dropping the title in his second bout. Who were the 2 wrestlers? Was it A, Randy Savage and Bret Hart, B, Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart, C, Lex Luger and Bret Hart, or D, The Undertaker and Bret Hart? And I guess based on the questions I gave you, Bret Hart was one of them. Who was the other?
Oh, God.
So you're looking at Randy Savage, Shawn Michaels, Lex Luger, or The Undertaker?
Undertaker?
It was Lex Luger. Lex Luger and Bret Hart won that Royal Rumble together.
Oh, of course. That was the 90, what, 94, 95?
Yeah, it would have been 94, I think. Yep. Okay, well, your fate is sealed here. You are 0 for 3. Congratulations, Travis, for maintaining the lead for a day. But you got 2 more questions. Let's see if you can finish with some strength here.
Feels like old times.
I'm not feeling very good about this next question, but we'll see how you do. Both of those WrestleMania 10 matches had special guest referees. Were they A, Mr. Perfect and Pat Patterson, B, Pat Patterson and Roddy Piper, C, Bruno Sammartino and Roddy Piper, or D, Mr. Perfect and Roddy Piper?
Perfect and Piper? I know it was Piper.
Perfect and Piper. All right, 1 for 4. You're back in the game. You can laugh about that, and you can also laugh. Jose wants us to laugh about Bad Bunny.
That is worthy of a laugh.
And Travis is celebrating. So Yokozuna turned face. Fuji waved the American flag, as noted earlier. And Yoko tagged with Ahmed Johnson and this man to take on the team of Vader, Bulldog, and Owen Hart at WrestleMania 12. So it is Ahmed Johnson, Yokozuna, and a partner facing Vader, British Bulldog, and Owen Hart at WrestleMania 12. Were the partners, was that final partner Savio Vega, Razor Ramon, Diesel, or Jake Roberts?
Oh, God. Versus the Hearts. Give me run those down for me again. I'm sorry.
Sure. You just need the 4 options?
Yes, please.
Savio Vega, Razor Ramon, Diesel, or Jake Roberts. WrestleMania 12.
Savio Vega.
It is Jake Roberts.
Why not get that one? I love Jake Roberts.
And I think, and I'm going to see if I can do a quick Google here, but I'm pretty sure Savio faced Stone Cold at WrestleMania.
Yeah. That was a brutal match. Yeah.
Yep. And the Undertaker faced Diesel at that WrestleMania. So he would have been out, and then Razor Ramon wasn't on the card. But all right, well, John, that is the show today. But I've got some things I need to tell everybody about. So stay tuned here for a second so you don't miss out on some of these great things that are coming up, including the Wrestling Connection. Join the godfather of pro wrestling, Tony Capone, and the voice of the people, Tony T, every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the Nawa Wrestling Connection live on Blog Talk Radio. You can listen to the Nawa Wrestling Connection to find out everything that is taking place in the world of the North American Wrestling Alliance, and join the 2 Tonys as they sit down with a special guest each and every week. Last night they had on Tony DeVito, and I was on for that to ask a question. So it's a fun show. So don't forget to check that out. And also join Joey Jarzanka, Ian Schreier, and Rob DeLuca on Friday night, every Friday night, for the Primetime Rundown. They take you through the world of sports. Our show kicks off at 6 p.m. on the Eastern Observer. And then episode number 40 of the Essential Wrestling Podcast returns on Tuesday night. Al Carl, John Smith, myself, John Nicani, and Gary Mahaffey return for another week of updates and highlights in the world of wrestling. Coverage will begin at 6 p.m. on Tuesday, February 9th on the Eastern Observer. So lots and lots of stuff going on. Our show is going to be returning tomorrow with John Smith. That is the Daily Wrestling News Show. Let me see. Comments are piling in, so must be people excited about everything that's going on. Travis has reminded me that I need to give you the Hawkins. There it is. So let's make sure we thank Travis for that.
Good looking out, Travis.
Yeah. So very good. So that's our show. John, any parting words before we get out of here?
No, I think we covered the day's events and had a good time doing it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thanks, everybody. Like I said, our show returns tomorrow. Don't miss it. And thanks for watching.